All right, everyone. I know the fight like the back of my hand. Did it on my main last week. Got cutting edge, no problem. You're in good hands. Everyone stack on the marker. When he casts Supernova, we stack tighter. Trust me, it's the safe spot.
Isn't Supernova the spread mechanic?
No, definitely stack. I've done this dozens of times. Well, we all just died. Okay, that was a bug. Let's try again. This time stack even tighter.
Dude, you are reading the mechanics backwards.
Maybe, I don't know. I've never actually done this fight. I just wanted to see what would happen.
Welcome back to MMO Madness Behind the Troll Mask. I'm Boss Mode, and today we're talking about one of the most efficient forms of trolling in MMO history, the fake raid leader. One person, 40 victims, and hours of wasted time. Let's dive in how leadership positions become the ultimate griefing tool. Before we get into the horror stories, let's define what we mean by fake raid leader, because there's actually a spectrum here. At one end, you've got the incompetent but well-meaning leader. This is someone who thinks they know the fight but actually doesn't. Maybe they watched a guide video once. Maybe they cleared it with a carry group and think they understand it. Maybe they're just overconfident. They're not trying to troll. They genuinely believe they can lead the raid. They're wrong, but their intentions are good. Then you've got the fake it till you make it leader. They know they don't fully understand the fight, but they're hoping to figure it out on the fly. They watched a guide. They know the basics, but they're missing crucial details. They're gambling that the raid can carry them through their learning process. Sometimes this works, usually it doesn't. In the middle, you've got the desperate leader who needs to clear content and can't find a group, so they make their own and pretend to know what they're doing. They're motivated by self-interest, not malice. They'll try their best, but if the raid fails, they'll blame everyone else rather than admit they didn't know the mechanics. And at the far end, you've got the malicious troll. This is someone who forms a raid with the specific intent to waste everyone's time. They know they don't know the fight. They don't care. The chaos is the goal. They want to watch people fail, get frustrated, and rage quit. They're weaponizing leadership for entertainment. What makes raid leading such an effective trolling tool is the power dynamic. When you're the raid leader, people assume you know what you're doing. They defer to your judgment. They follow your instructions, even if those instructions are obviously wrong, because they're trusting that you have information they don't. You control the pace, the poll timing, the strategy calls. You can make people wait around for an hour. You can poll before the raid is even ready. You can fake the mechanic explanations and sound plausible. And all of this wastes the time of not just one person, but 30, 40, sometimes 50 people at once. The efficiency is what makes it so appealing to trolls. If you're corpse camping someone, you're griefing one player. If you're fake raid leading, you're griefing dozens simultaneously. It's economy scale for trolling. And here's the worst part. People often don't realize they're being trolled until they've already invested an hour or more. By the time it becomes obvious the raid leader has no idea what they're doing, you've already committed so much time that you're trapped by the sunk cost fallacy. Do you leave and waste the hour you've already spent, or you keep trying, hoping it'll eventually work? The other factor is that raids are social environments where people don't want to cause conflict. Even when someone suspects the raid leader is clueless, they often won't speak up because they don't want to be that guy who questions authority. Trolls exploit this social pressure to keep the deception going longer. Alright, let's get into some real stories of raid leaders who absolutely destroyed their groups, intentionally or otherwise. This is from World of Warcraft during the Shadowlands expansion. A guy, we'll call him Derek, formed a pug raid for Castle Nathria. He positioned himself as an experienced raid leader who cleared it multiple times. The raid gets to the third boss and Derek starts explaining mechanics. But here's the thing, he's explaining them completely backwards. He's telling people to stack when they should spread. He's saying to run away from ads when they should kill them. He's calling to burn the boss when they should switch to ads. At first, people assume they're just executing poorly. Oh, we didn't stack tight enough, or we didn't run far enough. They keep wiping and keep trusting Derek's adjustments, which are making it worse. Finally, someone pulls up a guide and realizes that Derek has literally inverted every single mechanic. When confronted, Derek claimed he was from the European strat, and this is how they do it there. People check. There's no European strat. Derek made it up. Turns out Derek had never cleared the raid. He watched a guide video while drunk, remembered everything backwards, and decided to form a raid anyway. The group had spent 3 hours on a boss that they should have only taken 20 minutes. Some people think Derek was trolling. Others think he was genuinely that clueless. Either way, 25 people wasted an entire evening following instructions that were worse than doing nothing. This one's from EVE Online, and it's one of the most elaborate fake fleet commander stories I've ever heard. A player, let's call him Marcus, spent months building a reputation as a skilled fleet commander. He led successful ops, made smart calls, earned people's trust. His corporation put him in charge of increasingly important fleets. Then came the big operation, a major corporation versus corporation fight. Hundreds of players, billions of ISK and ships. Marcus was chosen to lead the fleet because of his track record. Marcus led the fleet directly into an ambush. But here's the thing, it wasn't a mistake. He'd been feeding intelligence to the enemy corporation for the entire time. He planned this betrayal for months. He positioned the fleet exactly where the enemy wanted them, called for the entire fleet to jump in, and then logged off. The slaughter was absolute. The Corps lost almost everything: ships, resources, morale, and, of course, Marcus. He'd already transferred all of his assets out of the Corps days before. He logged back in with a different character in the enemy Corps and collected his payment. This wasn't just a fake raid leader. This was corporate espionage, using a leadership position as the weapon. One person's long con destroyed hundreds of hours of work for dozens of players. This one's from Final Fantasy. A player, we'll call her Sarah, formed a learning party for an extreme trial, endgame content that required coordination and mechanical knowledge. Sarah positioned the party as a casual learning environment where it's okay to make mistakes. Great, right? Except Sarah had never watched a guide. She had never attempted the fight. She didn't know any mechanics at all. Her strategy was to pull the boss and just see what happens. When mechanics happened, she'd make up exclamations on the spot. Oh, that ice thing. Just don't stand in it. The boss is glowing. DPS harder. The party wiped over and over. People asked Sarah if she wanted to watch a guide together. She said no. She wanted to experience the fight blind and organically, which would be fine if she'd communicated that up front, but she'd advertised it as a learning party, implying she knew what to teach. After 2 hours of zero progress, someone finally asked Sarah directly, "Have you cleared this before?" Sarah admitted she had never even attempted it. She thought learning party meant everyone learns together from scratch. The party disbanded immediately. Sarah posted on Reddit after complaining about toxic elitists who abandoned her learning party. The comments roasted her. You can't be a raid leader for content you've never researched. That's not leading, that's wasting everyone's time. Here's World of Warcraft again. During the Battle of Azeroth, there was this raid leader selling achievement runs, paid carries through difficult content. He had the achievement himself, posted screenshots, seemed legit. People paid real money, like 50 to 100 per person for a guaranteed clear. He formed a raid of paying customers, all excited to get their achievement. The raid couldn't even clear the first boss. Turns out the raid leader had bought his achievement from a carry group and had no idea how to actually do the content. He'd spent 200 on his own carry, then tried to scam others by pretending he could lead them through. When people demanded refunds, he claimed they'd failed the run because they were bad players and that he wasn't responsible for their performance. He refused to refund anyone. Multiple people reported him to Blizzard for scamming. He got banned, but the money was gone. This fake raid leader turned leadership into actual real-world fraud. This is from Guild Wars 2 raid content. A player, we'll call him Kyle, had a reputation for being a decent raid leader. He'd led successful clears, knew the fights, had a friendly attitude. One day, Kyle snapped. He'd had a bad day at work, was tilted from other gaming stuff, and decided to fake it out on a pug raid. He formed a group, got everyone together, and proceeded to give the worst calls imaginable. Stack in the AoE. Don't kill the ads. Focus on the unkillable mechanic. Every single call was designed to cause a wipe. And when people questioned him, he'd get angry and say they weren't listening to his instructions correctly. After wiping 6 times in a row on the first boss, people started to realize Kyle was doing it on purpose. Someone recorded the voice chat and posted it to Reddit. You could hear Kyle laughing between wipes. The community backlash was intense. Kyle was blacklisted from every major raiding guild on his server. His reputation was destroyed. He ended up server transferring and changing his character name, but people recognized his voice and he got blacklisted again. He had thrown away years of community standings for one night of trolling, and he wasted about 4 hours total across 10 people in his raid. Here's another one from Final Fantasy. A raid leader claimed they'd studied the fight extensively from YouTube guides. They could recite mechanics, explain positioning, sounded really knowledgeable. The raid starts. Within 30 seconds, it's clear this person has never actually done the fight. The mechanics they described were from a completely different boss. They had watched guides from the wrong content. When confronted, they admitted they had gotten the fights confused. They thought they were doing Fight A, but had studied Fight B. They asked if the group wanted to switch to the other fight instead. The entire raid was already inside the instance. You can't just switch fights. Everyone had to leave, reform, and hope to find a replacement raid leader. An hour of everyone's time completely wasted because this person couldn't even verify they were studying the right content. So why do people become fake raid leaders? What drives someone to take on responsibility they can't handle or deliberately sabotage a group? For the incompetent but well-meaning leaders, it's usually overconfidence combined with the Dunning-Kruger effect. They don't know enough to realize how much they don't know. They watched a guide, they understood the surface mechanics, and genuinely believe that's sufficient. They can't comprehend the difference between theoretical knowledge and practical execution. There's also the someone has to lead mentality. No one else is stepping up, so they volunteer even though they're not qualified. They figure any leadership is better than no leadership. They're trying to help. They're just incompetent. The desperate leaders who need clears, it's self-interest. They want the loot, the achievement, the progression. They can't get invited to competent groups because they don't have experience, so they form their own and hope to fake it. They're using other players as resources to get what they want. The malicious trolls have a different motivation. Some do it for a power trip. They enjoy controlling dozens of people and watching them fail on command. It's puppet mastering. They're conducting an orchestra of frustration and they love it. Others do it for the content. They're recording the whole thing to post on YouTube or a stream. Watching people get increasingly frustrated makes for entertaining content, and engagement is worth the consequences. They're treating other players as unwitting actors in their performance. And some, well, they do it for revenge. Maybe they got kicked from a raid once. Maybe they think the raiding community is toxic. Maybe they're mad at the game developers. Sabotaging raids is payback against the community or the game itself. And some do it simply because they're bored and destructive. They've run out of normal content. They're not interested in genuine progressive, so they turn to chaos as entertainment. Watching things fall apart is more fun than making them work. What's interesting is that fake raid leading requires more effort than a lot of other trolling. You have to form a group, coordinate people, maintain the deception. You can't just press a button and grief someone. You have to sustain the troll for an extended period. This means that people who do it are often either deeply committed to the troll or they generally didn't realize they were in over their heads until it was too late to go back. All right, practical advice time. How do you spot a fake raider before you waste hours of your time? The first red flag, they're vague about their experience. If you ask, how many times have you cleared this, and they say, oh, plenty of times, or a bunch, instead of giving specific number, be suspicious. Experienced leaders know exactly how many times they've cleared content because that's how they track their progress. The second red flag, they can't explain mechanics when asked. If someone asks, what's your strat for mechanic X, and the leader says, we'll figure it out when we get there, or just follow my lead, that's a bad sign. Real leaders can explain mechanics clearly and specifically. The third red flag, they're recruiting way over eye level or skill requirements. If the content requires eye level 200 and they're demanding eye level 230, they're trying to get carried by overgeared players to compensate for their lack of knowledge. Same if they're requiring achievements that are harder than the content they're running. Fourth red flag, they're defensive about questions. If you ask for clarification and they get snippy or say, just trust me, that's suspicious. Confident leaders welcome questions because it means people are engaged and want to succeed. The fifth red flag, they rush through explanations or skip them entirely. Everyone knows this fight, right? Followed by pulling before anyone answers is a huge warning sign. Either they don't know the fight themselves or they're deliberately trying to cause chaos. The sixth red flag, check their achievements and logs. Most games have ways to verify someone's experience. WoW has achievement links and Warcraft logs. Final Fantasy has FF logs. If someone claims they've cleared content, ask them to link the achievement. If they don't want or can't, leave immediately. The seventh red flag, their instructions contradict known guides. If you've watched guides and their strat is completely different, ask them to explain why. Sometimes there are alternate strats, but often it means they're making stuff up. Eighth red flag, they don't assign roles clearly. A good raid leader knows who's tanking what, who's healing what, who's on ads, and who's on the interrupt. If they say just tanks do tank stuff without specifics, they don't actually know how to organize a raid. The ninth red flag, they blame the raid immediately after wipes. You guys aren't following instructions, or the DPS is way too low before even analyzing what went wrong in deflection. They're covering for the fact that they don't know what actually caused the wipe. Here's the thing though. Sometimes people are genuinely learning to raid lead and they're going to make mistakes. That's okay if they are upfront about it. Hey, I'm new to leading, but I've cleared this content as a DPS. I want to give it a shot. Is honest and lets people make the informed choice. The fake raid leaders aren't the ones who admit they're learning. They're the ones who pretend to be experts when they're not. Let's talk about that moment when the raid figures out the leader has no idea what they're doing. What happens next? Usually there's progression. First there's confusion. People start questioning the calls. Wait, are you sure we stack for that? I thought the guide said to spread. People are giving the leader the benefit of the doubt, but expressing concern. Then there's the challenge. Someone directly contradicts the raid leader, often citing a guide or their own experience. This is the critical moment. A real leader will either explain why their strat is different or acknowledge the correction. A fake leader will get defensive. If the leader gets defensive, that's when doubt turns to certainty. People start pulling up guides mid-raid. They start checking the leader's achievements. They start comparing notes and whispers. The social contract of trusting the leader breaks down. One critical mass is reached. Usually when 3 or 4 people openly express doubt, the raid falls apart fast. People start leaving. Others demand a new raid leader. Some try to salvage the group by taking over leadership themselves. For the well-meaning, incompetent leaders, this moment is humiliating. They realize they've wasted everyone's time. Most apologize and leave quietly. Some get defensive and blame the raid. Rarely they admit they were wrong and ask to stay as DPS while someone else leads. For the malicious trolls, this is the moment they've been waiting for. The reveal. They'll either double down and pretend they were right all along, or they'll drop the mask and laugh about how long they kept going at it. Either way, they're getting the reaction they wanted. The aftermath depends on the game and the server. In games with tight communities, fake raid leaders get reputations fast. Their names get shared on Discord servers and forums. They struggle to find groups. In more anonymous games with cross-server play, they just reform with new people and do it again. The sad thing is that this experience makes people less trusting of all raid leaders, even legitimate ones. Once you've been burned by a fake leader, you're way more skeptical of everyone. It damages the community's ability to form pug raids because no one wants to trust strangers anymore. Fake raid leaders represent one of the most time-efficient forms of trolling in MMOs. One person can waste hours for dozens of players simultaneously. It's griefing at scale. If you're thinking about forming a raid and you're not sure you can lead it, be honest. Say, I'm learning to lead, or I'm new to this role. Most communities are supportive of people learning as long as they're upfront about it. What people hate is deception. If you're joining a raid, do your due diligence. Check the leader's experience. Ask questions. Watch for the red flags. And don't be afraid to leave if someone feels off. Your time is valuable, and you don't owe anyone the benefit of the doubt if they're not earning it. And if you're trolling by fake raid leading, understand that you're not just annoying people, you're actively damaging your game's community. You're making it harder for legitimate new raid leaders to get trusted. You're making players less willing to help strangers. You're eroding the social fabric that makes MMOs function. Raid leading is hard. It requires knowledge, communication skills, patience, and the ability to adapt when things go wrong. Real raid leaders deserve respect for taking on that burden. Fake raid leaders who waste everyone's time, well, they deserve the blacklisting they inevitably get. Next week on MMO Madness Behind the Troll Mask, we're diving into scamming the scammers. When trolls get trolled, we're talking about the reverse Uno card moments, the scam baiters who turn the tables, the beautiful karma when griefers get what's coming to them. You definitely don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and support the podcast. Tell your guildmates. Share it on your Discord and leave us a review. And if you've ever got a fake raider leader story, whether you were the fake, the victim, or the hero who called them out, email me at podcast@mmomadness.com. Until then, verify your raid leaders, trust but confirm, and remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I'm Boss Mode, and thanks for listening.